Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Meelas, an Abu Dhabi wargaming podcast. The Meelas podcast is hosted by me, Simon, and alongside me not only is Ibrahim, but we are also joined today by Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Hi.
We are watched over, as ever, in our hobby by the 4 cats of the Meelas, who are all currently in solitary confinement in their boxes right now. Now, the 4 cats of the Meelas are not named after YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music, but whichever of these platforms you're listening to us on, we'd be grateful if you'd subscribe, like, comment, rate, share, anything that prods the algorithm to say that this is your kind of thing. But one thing actually occurred to me the other day, that without some explanation, it might not exactly be clear what a Meelas is, depending on your knowledge of and familiarity with Arabic culture. Now, as much as our core audience is in the UAE, our stats analysis tells us that we have listeners in the US and Canada right the way across to Japan and Malaysia. So, as the white British man surrounded by Emiratis, allow me to explain Emirati culture. So the first concept that you might be aware of is that of the majlis, which is the sitting room, the meeting room, the council room. Typically, it's a room to receive and host guests, whether that's for just socializing or for more legislative procedures. Usually there's cushions or couches around the outside of the room, and basically every home has one. Now, when it comes to the Emirati dialect, there's not a lot of those hard J sounds, such as in majlis. So they adjust it slightly to melas, or similar. And this is why, under the patronage of our gracious host Ibrahim, we have the Meelas and the Meelas podcast. So there you go. Asked and answered and hopefully correct, right?
Yeah, sounds exactly right. Yeah.
Wow, check me out. Bang.
You're in.
Like any good Meelas, we have our karak and our Arabic coffee. So let's get into it. First up, we'll cover the dice rolling side of things. This week saw us have 2 intro games. So Ibrahim, you were involved in one of them, playing Infinity. How did it go?
It was amazing. It was Sohail's second intro to the game. This time I kind of walked him slowly into it. Again, I think the main concept that kind of throws people off, especially ones that play with either D20 systems or war games, is, for example, Infinity is D20, but you count downwards. That's when you pass. And the other thing for wargamers that's new is the arrow system, which is
automatic reaction order.
Yes, exactly that. It's because wargamers are used to just sitting there, watching your opponent shoot your minis off the table, and then you do the same onwards until it's done. But in Infinity, the main logo is in Infinity. It's always your turn. So that's Sales experience with Infinity now. He'll have a full game soon, inshallah.
This was the Sand Trap starter set, which is 3 models aside, yeah?
Yeah, it's the intro box, which has a total of 6 models, 3 for each side. The general guide on how to play Infinity, a nice little terrain that's very easily built, and a nice little mat to play the tutorial or the demo on.
Yeah, this was my first way of playing Infinity as well. And you've kind of got 2 regular troop guys and then 1 specialist kick-ass guy. Now was it the JSA? You've got some kind of
JSA.
Amazing ninja guy.
Exactly.
And for the Pano, you've got as an orc trooper, which is basically a guy with a heavy weapon who stands there and goes, I dare you.
Yeah, exactly. It goes down to you on how do you play both. Because we've seen sometimes where the Pano side wins and another's the GSA one. So it's really up to whoever's playing and how lucky you are with your dice rolls.
Yeah, I found because of the crit system that when that happens, it really changes the game.
Yeah.
Now in that box, the JSA, the ninja guy, is very expensive and very, very good because he's difficult to shoot at. He's much better than anybody else in close combat.
Yep.
But if he gets shot at, there's a great possibility that he can die.
Yep.
So it's, for me, that first point of playing that game was when you've suddenly start to go, well, do I bring everybody forward? Do I just run this guy off and try and solo the enemy team? It's that making that decision and figuring out how Infinity works in that way that was something was expanded on in my next game.
I think the general approach to trying out Infinity is walking slowly into it, because some concepts are very different, but it's also the tactical decisions you make. Like, sure, the melee guy that you were playing is really strong and hard to shoot at, but it's just a complex paper, rock, scissors game where there's always something that cancels the other out.
So Sahel came out of that thinking you'll continue playing.
Yes.
I'm glad Sahel enjoyed that one because
Alhamdulillah.
just always nice to have another player for a new game
Yeah.
as well.
And I also saw Tyler having a lot of fun with the Heresy game you had.
Well, he wasn't having a lot of fun with the dice. So the way I introduce Heresy now for 3rd edition is that I take my very narrative Death Guard, which is based on the Flight of the Eisenstein, Nathaniel Garrow and his surviving 70 of the 7th Battle Company. 1,000 points, 35 models, nice and easy. But for my opponent, I give them my Blood Angels at 1,000 points, which is quite a meta list, very on brand for what Heresy plays as in 3rd edition, claims objectives quickly. So when I played Levi the week before, he knew exactly what all of these units should do, used them effectively, and didn't give me a chance. But when Tyler was playing, he didn't quite have the same knowledge of what should go where, so he was figuring out as he went. He had some knowledge of obviously 40k, but Heresy is generally a different game. And so it was a case of understanding how vehicles move, how you disembark, how objectives work, how you claim them, the reactions that you can do. So as he started to tune into that, it was interesting to see the way the game kind of ebbed and flowed as he got a grip on it. And I think we had good fun, and he'll definitely be committing to the Sons of Horus.
Nice. Yes. Yeah, we discussed it a little bit on how he could start painting it and look into how they play as well. Ahmed, what was your first demo on the Meelas?
Was it Heresy or 40k?
It was Heresy 2.0.
I was kind of just watching you do the math and all the rules, and I couldn't grasp a single concept. So it felt like I'm playing like an old school RPG, Baldur's Gate 2. Things are just happening, and I have no idea what's happening. Things are dying. I'm doing damage. God knows what just happened.
To be fair, I wasn't really good at teaching then. I didn't have that much experience, to be fair.
So Ibrahim gave me like at least like 5 demos.
Yes.
For giving up, because I just actually he kept wanting to give me demos. Wargaming wasn't for me. Then at some point I was just kind of chilling in the Meelas, and Ibrahim wanted to get me into at least painting. Maybe that could be my gateway drug into wargaming and hobbying and everything. And I didn't want to do that until out of pettiness, I agreed when Ibrahim bet Simon, what was it, a Warlord Titan?
It was your unbuilt Warlord Titan. You said, if you can get Ahmed into playing Heresy, I'll give you this Warhound Titan. And I'm like, don't be silly. You're not going to give me a Warhound Titan that's not built and it's just in the back. But it's still a challenge I'm going to try and get him into. I'm still going to try and convert him and play Lorgar for a while. So as he's sitting there painting, we had a lore conversation. And I think it was it Maheri who was just like, I sound like I'm listening to a YouTube video. Like, what are you guys talking about in such depth? And at that point, I realized that Ahmed had already brought on board so much of the lore of Warhammer 40k that you knew it so well already that I'm like, this guy's a natural wargamer in there somewhere. We just need to find the way that he likes. And it turned out not to be Heresy.
At some point, I really wanted Ibrahim to play Half-Life 2 for years. So, and I knew he wasn't just going to do it, because both of us are kind of stubborn like that. So I made a deal. He plays Half-Life 2, and I play an Infinity demo match.
Yeah, that was it.
So once I played Infinity, I realized with Warhammer, it was a huge rule book. There's a lot of things going on. With Infinity, it just felt kind of more intuitive for me. I'm either shooting, I'm dodging, or I'm moving. And it just kind of felt natural. It just worked. And I enjoyed it. That really got me into the gaming part of wargaming.
Mhm.
Because before that, I just couldn't touch it.
But we finally got you playing one, which is great. But also, we were looking at what was on the hobby table this week as well.
Mhm.
So if you've seen our Instagram, which is ad.wargaming, go and find us. We share the things that our Meelas attendees have been working on. So give us a follow on there and add a little bit more hobby to your feed. What are we all hobbying, by which I mean building and painting, at the moment?
I finally finished Pedro Kantor for sale, who have had it, I think, since release of that model. But
He's on his original base.
yes, yeah,
Definitely, a little one.
yeah, the little base, and as a thank you for just sale being awesome,
Yeah.
I painted him as probably the best model I've ever painted so far. Put a lot of time into him. It was an absolute joy to paint a Marine, and that's
Wait, say that again, a bit louder and a bit slower.
Oh.
It was a joy to paint a...
it was a joy painting a Marine.
Oh, music to my ears.
Yes, finally. I know it's been a very long time since I painted a Space Marine. It was awesome, especially like those older Marines in a heroic scale. Maybe because I've been painting a lot of Infinity and got used to that tiny scale. Painting something that's a bit more heroic.
I think the thing most people don't understand about the difference in scales is that the old school Marines are short and squat
Mhm.
with big heads and big hands and
Yep.
little legs and almost non-existent bodies. And when you compare them to correctly proportioned things, they look ridiculous.
Yep.
They're just short little dinky guys with
Yep.
massive hands and heads. And
Yes.
it kind of feels weird until you're painting one. And then it makes sense
Yeah.
almost. And it's just the way these things look.
Sometimes I get like confused because you see the old art for Warhammer and it's all grim dark and stuff, and then you look at the models, they're all colorful and little cartoony. And how are these part of the same universe?
Looking at like John Blanche's original sketches,
Mm.
and then you look at how clean but still dark someone like Mark Gibbons' artwork is. And then you go to the actual models and the painting and what heavy metal comes out with. That's the way Warhammer works. It's all of these things thrown
Exactly.
together in a very weird fashion that just makes kind of the full meal of all the different flavors.
That happens with a lot of universes. If you look at the original Warcraft concept art, it's like sweaty buff orcs and all that. Then you go look at like Warcraft 3 and it's like work. Like,
I also finished my Morat, which were really fun to do this time around, because after doing the Space Marine, I honestly was also watching insert Polish name here. I can't pronounce it or say it or spell it, but it was recommended to me by Jagosh on how to paint non-metallic metallics. Specifically, the video was on painting ultramarines, and I just simply applied the same concepts, tried to get the right colors, but Crimson Fists are a bit darker blue. The best way to actually advance your painting is copying someone that knows what they're doing and not assume that you're gonna figure it out.
I think that's true. Looking at is it 5 or 6 like red monkey men you've done?
Yeah.
They look completely cohesive, even though they're all different.
Yep.
And the way you've done the hair and the fur and the guns and the armor and the muscles all together, that just works really nicely. The color palette's really nice to look at. So I'd probably agree with that. That definitely as a little set of 5, they kind of stand above the other things you've done in terms of like technical quality and visual aesthetic as well. I think it all goes together really nicely.
Thank you. And hopefully it'll look cooler when they're all 15 are ready for Infinity.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? You've had some hoping going.
I finished my Caster of Runes, for which I was using Nye Stormcaller in Terminator armor, the old Finecast. Unfortunately, it was Finecast, not metal. So he was missing several details. But after taking the time to spend on the 10 Grey Slayers, I just wanted to give myself one model to look at and go in extra detail, an extra layer of highlights, extra care. And I think he's turned out really nicely. He's, again, straight into my like top 5 minis ever.
I really loved the little crow. Loved the little wires on him. And the way he did the beard and face is amazing. Like really nailing it.
Thank you very much.
Really loved it. I think you're approaching army painting the correct way, in where you do 5 or 10 guys, then you do a character. You try to improve your work on that character and reward yourself with that little break of just focusing on one model.
Even if you don't like painting, which I don't particularly like, I like the output, but I don't like the process. So I don't force myself to do things I dislike for a long time. Like, I'm going to have to get to those 15 Grace layers at some point. But if I do the 5 Vanagir first, then do the Grace layers, then reward myself with the Storm Eagle to finish off the project, then that will feel like progress. For me, that's how it works best. And that's the way I'd recommend to anybody to paint their armies.
Yep. That's how you get it done pretty fast. As long as you know the color scheme that you're going for, which is pretty easy for like Warhammer games. Ahmed, I think, was also doing some painting this weekend.
Yeah, I was painting an Infinity Tohaa Chax Auxiliar, and I went in with no plan.
Yeah, there you go.
See, last time that worked out well. This time it just was the worst model I've ever painted. Oh, not the model itself. My painting was the worst that I've ever done. Had to restart it, change the entire color scheme. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on it.
Is that because you just picked up a brush and said, I'll figure out as I go along?
Pretty much. It's worked out a bunch of times, except this time now I learned my lesson. I'm gonna say the color scheme. It was horrible. It was purple, red, teal, and for some reason a really dark sludge green. So it just looked disgusting. Pretty much. Nothing worked. Nothing worked on that color scheme.
It could also be the distribution of the paints. So if you go like 90% purple, and then 3 whatever, maybe it could work. But like just a general idea of how to do like top light paints.
The real question is, like, just look at the models. What was I thinking with purple? None of that fits purple. It makes absolutely no sense.
What do Tohaa look like, Ahmed?
They kind of look like artichokes, like alien artichokes.
As somebody who doesn't know what Tohaa look like, just while you've been having this conversation, I've just quickly Googled Tohaa, and I sort of see like techno I am Groot is the kind of the vibe I get from it.
Pretty much.
So to say that you did them purple confuses me somewhat.
Precisely
I've got
what
to
I
say. Like, they could work with any color scheme, but because they look very earthy with kind of tech applied to them generally.
This makes absolutely no sense why I'd go with purple.
Well, I mean, speaking of purple, Hassan was also painting his Cities of Sigmar. I think he is now reworking the purple a little bit, giving it more depth, highlights, which is looking amazing already. He has a gorgeous Cities of Sigmar army. Hopefully it grows out and becomes something more, since we already have that gorgeous terrain that he painted as well.
And that's just begging for games of fantasy something.
Yeah, would love to play a D&D game on that.
So Ahmed, as we've been discussing, you are pretty new to wargaming as a hobby in terms of painting, playing. I wanted to discuss with you today how you got into this. What were the kind of things you were into in terms of your interests and hobbies?
It was mostly just video games and TV shows, movies. So the universe is like Gears of War. That I feel walks right into Warhammer perfectly. The same level of Grimdark and Halo, World of Warcraft, obviously. Having already been in those fandoms and really being into those things really helped me just understand Warhammer lore and get into the hobbying easier. Because I already have like an idea of what fantasy is, what sci-fi is.
But as somebody who's geeky enough to be playing the Gears of Wars and the Halos and things like that, you were like, this feels similar.
Yeah, it messes right in.
So what was the first hook that caught your attention? What made you go, oh, that's cool?
I guess word bearers. I just felt like I know. Someone out there is gonna say word bears are what is the word?
Pathetic.
Excuse me. Okay.
Sneaky bastards.
Okay, I forgive both of you. Um, I just kind of loved how petty they are. They're kind of rebellious, but it's more out of rejection.
So how did you come across the word bearers? Was it a lore video? Was it watching a game? How did they stick out to you?
So I first heard about Erebus. I didn't like him. I don't like Erebus. I have to say that. Erebus is a bad person. I agree with everyone on that. Learning more about Erebus made me learn about Logor, which I loved. I ended up listening to the audiobook First Heretic. I loved every second of it. I loved their fall. Because unlike some of the other factions, it wasn't driven by madness. It was them intentionally walking towards it. So that got me interested in Warhammer. Even though I knew some other lore and how the models are, but that's what hooked me in.
What then pulled you in to say, I'm going to try that hobby, whether it's gaming or painting? How did you just flow into that?
Ibrahim was getting close to getting me in. And he was sending me a lot of Instagram posts of amazing painters. And then that infected my algorithm. So I started also indulging into it, but like never putting my foot in to test it. And I saw some really good word bears and just generally chaos art, which I loved.
What did you find the most intimidating thing about getting into the hobby? What was the biggest obstacle for you?
Well, I think it was just being consistent with painting, which I still definitely am not and probably won't be. The idea that my skill will decrease over time if I don't paint, if I don't practice, and also just painting in general. You see a video, it looks easy. You put brush and paint, then brush on model, and then why does it not look like the YouTube video? Why does it not look like this person who's painted for 40 years?
I think that what you said about painting is a general problem with a lot of the people that want to develop any kind of hobby or skill, especially in our culture, honestly, or expect instant improvement overnight. Like, yeah, I painted this today. Why am I not the best painter in the world the next day? Or if I'm not, then I'm just going to drop it, which is a problem because any hobby you want to pick up, you will need to invest your time, effort, and general energy towards to become better at.
I think the best way to put it for people who are like that, which I am like that, is it doesn't have to be done, but it has to be perfect.
There's an interesting way of doing it, because before you make it perfect, I would say make it. I'm not somebody who enjoys painting particularly much. I love building models. Then when it comes to the painting side, I have been getting better at it over the past 3 years, but I still don't actively enjoy it. I think the number of times I sit down and go, oh, I'm going to paint this and I'm going to have fun, is maybe 1 out of 4 or 5 sessions. The rest of it is to get it done. And I tend to like the results, but not the process to get there. And then once it's all done, I really love it. And it's great because we game with fully painted armies, etc. But the actual painting, could we speed this up a bit?
See, the point of what I said was don't focus on finishing. If it's good, then it's gonna take some time. So don't keep searching for the when am I gonna finish this. Then you might start enjoying your time. There's no deadline. At the end of the day, it's a hobby.
Mm.
So no KPIs. Take your time. Enjoy it instead of rushing through or when am I going to finish so I can get to my next army.
You like to enjoy the journey whenever the destination is. I like to be at the destination. And the journey is the thing I have to get through to get there.
But there, I think, is a middle problem. Is actually, to start the journey, you start walking. It's the getting to walk that makes people never even start their journey to finish. That's what I think helps in the Meelas, is that it helps you start that walking. Because you just see everyone painting, hobbying, chilling. It's kind of infectious and makes you wanna do your start your own whatever you're working on. Gets you moving, gets you started with everyone motivating the other, encouraging each other, teaching each other on how to improve our overall painting, giving tips. That helps a lot. But yeah, I agree in a sense that yes, you should, depending on what's your goal, because that's something you need to establish before you start. You want to get better at painting, then don't focus on the destination, really do focus on the journey. If you want to do army painting, then the destination is probably what you're looking to do. So that's things to consider before starting any project, is to think of that. What is your style? Are you doing it just to have a really nice looking army on the table? Or do you want to improve your skill, but you're going to end up with a full army in 2 years kind of concept? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think one thing there is for people who have just starting out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the first model or the first batch of models they've ever done. And then both of the things are important. It's learning how you can paint, because you don't know your style at that point. You don't necessarily know where you're going. You just want to make the gray pile look like your guys who look remotely like the faction you're representing.
True. Yeah, I see it now. It's a problem now. You can't.
But you don't know that background of what your midis could look like based on what you could do, because you've never done it before. So there's a point where it's just start and put some color on, because you know what, we can always fix it later. Or you put it to the side and go, that was my first unit, my second squad will be better. And then you progress and you progress and you progress. And I've done that since coming back into the hobby in 2023, and each army has got better. And so now my Space Wolves I'm super proud of. The way they look, the way they feel, how much better they are than 2 armies ago with my 1,000 Suns. And that just comes naturally.
Yeah, I think starting off is the hardest part, because as you said, when you start, you don't know what are styles, what is the general process. But I think that's something Ahmed can talk about a bit, since he just started.
Yeah, you as a beginner, don't even worry about styles. Don't even worry about being good. You can see all the amazing painters. You can watch all the videos you want, but you're never gonna get from point A to point B if you don't get into the car first. You're gonna have to mess up. Everyone has their first bad model. And you will never get to a good model if you don't start off with a bad one. So don't even worry about being good. I know that there's a money investment, there's a time investment, but just like any hobby, you're gonna have to spend a bit, but you shouldn't be afraid to mess up or waste some supplies, waste a model. A journey doesn't start and end with a model and then you start a new journey. It's about your own skills. The hobby isn't the models you have, it's the work that you've done.
Nicely put. Yeah. But yeah, I remember your first finished model was the Necron you did.
Oh god. Yeah, well, that's a great example of a bad model. That was this sloppy white. It was like powdery. Yeah. But hey, I'm not gonna say I'm good now, but I'm definitely amazing compared to whatever that was. That's fine. Your first model, I'm guessing, wasn't good either.
No, I mean, it was horrible. It was a poor blood angel that I primed on the sprue on the ground over a tissue paper, and the poor guy had his face blasted with the primer. And that meme, the space marine with his eyes like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
just the blob.
exactly, that was it. And he was atrocious, but
But it was a necessary sacrifice.
he was. We
'Cause you-
still have him.
Yeah.
This poor guy is just in a corner somewhere. But yeah, having your first model is always a motivational thing to look at whenever you feel like you done messed up your model. Look at your first one, you realize. I mean, unless you're 2 models in, then maybe just keep going. Yeah, you just keep going. We believe in you.
It also gives you a new appreciation for good painters, because you've seen the struggle that it takes to just paint in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the first model I ever painted because I traded them all away before I came to the UAE in 2013. So looking at my first Primaris squad in 23, and once I'd finished them, I was very happy with them. Like, these look pretty good. I'm not going to win any painting competitions, but overall they're pretty good for me. And then I painted a second squad and thought, oh, this first squad are awful compared to the second one, because suddenly the highlights get refined better, so that the color placement gets better, the use of techniques gets better, whatever it happens to be. It's maybe not improved every time with every squad, and there's been plateaus along the way, but generally there is an upward trend when you stick at it and try and learn from your mistakes. It's all part of that journey.
It depends on where are you aiming to go for. I started in 2018 until 2025, I would say. My painting maybe did not improve. It was more that I was applying different techniques that made it faster and easier. So that's why I ended up with like 30 finished armies, was because I was using techniques that would get me done models that in a acceptable quality. But over the last, honestly, since the Meelas started, I want to improve. Like, I don't want to just sit there and paint the same style forever. I want to actually do something with my hobby and improve it. But that's not everyone's goal.
With getting better with painting, regardless of your skill level, getting better is more of a choice. You're going to have to seek out knowledge, seek out tutorials, but just on your own, it's very rare for it to happen. It might take you 10 times the amount of time to get better at like a tiny thing than it would if you just kind of seeked it yourself. It's completely a choice to get better.
No, I agree. For a long time, I would look at painting tutorials mostly to find the color scheme of how they've applied their colors and say, okay, that's a nice set. How do I kind of match that? And it's only from stopping just looking at the colors used to looking at the techniques, how they're watering their paints down, how they're applying them in certain ways, whatever that individual technique has to be. So often you see a nice color scheme posted somewhere on like a Discord and people will go, oh, what recipe is that? And it's not just the pots of paint you use. It's how you're using them. And once you're growing those that foundation of skills, that's when suddenly the actual colors stop mattering and you suddenly become a painter, as it were.
Exactly that. I remember when Zigas first came in and we were looking, where is my Rhinox hide and Skaven Grey Seer? And they was like, why are you looking for that specific paint? I was like, so I can, do whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, you can just mix your colors. And that was such an alien concept for me, at least. Why would I mix my colors if I have all the shades in front of me? And honestly, if you're army painting, it does not matter. You don't need to mix every color that you do. But when you're aiming to paint from a more artistic kind of style, you would need to mix your colors, because if you're gonna have every single color in front of you, it's gonna be a lot of paints.
Warhammer teaches you base with this black, you highlight it with this dark gray, you highlight it again with this kind of dark gray, and then you point highlight it with this mid gray. And the specific colors that they give you that match. And when you're starting out, that can be a very easy way of figuring out how you build up the colors. I still pick up the GW ones, and occasionally I'll mix and match, blend these two different yellows to get a mid color that I want, but not very often because I don't want to have to blend it every time I use that color. But when you get more artistically along the way and you say, why does my red have to be Mephiston or Baal Contrast or Evil Sun Scarlet? There's a whole range of reds in between there that you could mix up yourself.
Probably not a good idea to mix paints if you just need one color, or else you'll end up like me. At some point I spent 30 minutes getting the correct mix, the perfect color, just to see it right in front of me as a paint pot.
Yeah, probably best to look at the paint you have first before before mixing it.
You mix that shade of blue that had never been mixed before
Yeah.
in history.
Yeah, Ahmed's blue. Oh, it's right in front of me.
What did I say that? I invented the blue.
Yes.
And then
very
it
good.
was right in front of me.
The blue that you invented
Yeah.
Now-
was there all along.
Should definitely sue.
I was going to come on to mistakes that you made, because we all make mistakes as we go along. We pick up the wrong army, we try the wrong thing, we take the wrong game. What for you were the kind of the things that you would do differently were you starting again from scratch?
I feel like my consistent mistake throughout my entire painting journey was color schemes. I have issues with color schemes. In the case of my word bears, I started off with world eaters by accident with the gold and red trim. It's better to really make a decision before you start, or else you're gonna have a bunch of mismatched units. And another thing is, painting is a very detailed hobby. You might think that it's just as simple as like, okay, wet your brush, okay, water down your paints or thin out your paints. I wish that I learned to balance out my water to paint ratio earlier.
See, for me, everybody has the advice: thin your paints. How thin? What, like, I'll add water. What does that mean? What am I doing? And it was only when I saw a Duncan Rhodes video where he was saying thin your paints. He mixed it with his water, and he said, "I'm just looking for this kind of consistency." And he painted it across a dry palette, and I saw what the paint did and went, I understand now where the point is that I need to get to have a paint that flows in that way rather than just blob off the end of my bristles. And it was only upon seeing that it suddenly clicked for me, that like aha moment, the light bulb went off. That's the consistency. Why did nobody tell me this before in any other painting video I'd ever seen? And it took until a random Duncan Rhodes one to show that.
The most recent thing I learned was the pressure you put on the brush. It affects a lot how the paint looks on the model. I did not know that. Like, I never thought of it like that.
Another mistake I feel like I personally made a lot was just not seeing how I can get better. Like I knew that there's way better, and I just didn't understand. But at the same time, truly believing that you've reached the peak, not realizing that you just scratched the surface. There's way more techniques. There's techniques that even our best painters still haven't heard of. There's more than just YouTube tutorials.
So, Ahmed, when you joined, I think something unique about your experience was that, most people that get into wargaming, they want to paint their space marines, they want to just do an army that's ready for the table. But when you joined, you did those busts that kind of got you more interested in painting in an artistic style rather than a wargaming or just tabletop ready style. And I think that kind of overall affected your journey when it comes to miniature painting. And that's something I think most people that get into the hobby don't really get influenced by until years after they're into the hobby.
Yeah. So for reference, Grzegorz did a painting class on 3D printed busts of a dwarf, which was much larger scale, just for the act of learning how to paint the skin, the armor, the hair, and the leather, that kind of thing. And so rather than a class of how to paint a space marine, which is what most people would do, this was a totally separate way of doing it. I think that's what suddenly kind of clicked to the painting side for you to go, oh, where can you go with it?
Honestly, painting properly and in depth gave me more of a sense of pride in what I'm doing. I feel like that's, in my opinion, more of the hobby side, because you can win as many games, you can play as many games as you want, but nothing's as permanent as your painting and the effort that you put in it that would show. I think is switching to Infinity, as much as I love the game itself, The smaller scale kind of lobotomized my skill even more, because it was a lot harder to do anything that used to just take 2 seconds.
You just jumped extremes. You just
Yeah.
from a space marine to a bust to a model that has details even smaller than a space marine.
It has details that are more in depth than the bust, but smaller than the space marine. It's still hell to me. But I don't get the what's it called, army painting. I don't get it because like might as well just put some primer on them, then just like sloppily paint them, and then squint your eyes. You're gonna see them as an army. You're gonna look fine enough, like a Dawn of War 2 pixels, whatever. Those looked fine back then. You can do that with the real models and call it a day.
Dawn of
Still
War
works.
still looks fine now.
Yeah.
Definitive edition shout out.
Yeah.
So, Ahmed, for, let's say, wargaming newbies, for people who have just discovered Warhammer, maybe they've played Space Marine 2 or they've seen Total War or that kind of interaction, or they've watched lore YouTube videos and suddenly gone, this sounds cool. What is this hobby? What would you say to someone in Abu Dhabi, someone in the UAE who is kind of curious and doesn't know where to start with wargaming as a hobby?
Play Infinity. I'm kidding.
Don't listen to him, folks. Don't listen.
That's honestly, it's because you and Khalid had the same experience. Like,
Just struggled with Warhammer, got Infinity in 2 seconds.
yeah,
Okay, well, either way, I'm not gonna be biased. So Warhammer and Infinity, give it a try. We have the Meelas, we have experienced people, all skill levels. It's a good place to learn. Most people are more than happy to help out. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend getting into it on your own. Definitely let someone guide you.
And that's where the Meelas comes in.
Yep.
We have the community of different game players, different types of painters,
Yep.
different types of games completely.
Infinity has a lower entry barrier. Warhammer definitely have a bigger cult following.
but if you also see the depth of Infinity, Infinity is the Heresy of skirmish games, where its rules are deep. Like the rule book is huge. I think it's around 200 pages.
And that's just rules. It's not even the lore
Nope.
attached to it.
Not a single lore thing in that
But
200 pages.
not to scare anyone, you have the app, literally just like a
Yeah.
press. Let's say there's a gun or like a skill. Let's say you have super jump.
Oh yeah, super dope. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What does super jump do? You press on the word super jump, takes you directly to what it does. So even though it has 200 pages, you have direct access to only the things that are relevant.
It's easy to navigate.
Yeah, and it's very digestible. It
Yeah.
even gives you examples. And it's also, that type of gameplay is more digestible because it's faster to learn when it's your turn more often, if that makes sense.
You're playing more often.
Yeah, you make more mistakes and you do good more often.
Yeah, because it's like most people nowadays are used to playing, shooter games, Call of Duty, whatever. Video games expect you to learn within minutes and then just apply.
Yeah.
And doing skirmish games like Infinity or Necromunda is a bit closer to that mindset after you get into Infinity or Necromunda. And like, okay, I like this, but I also want huge armies. Like I want masses of infantry, masses of tanks. Then that's when you can get like, okay, you can do 3 hours, 2 hours of Necromunda or Infinity. Now you want more. You want to spend more time being different kind of tactical, because Necromunda, Infinity, and 40k Heresy, they are the same concept with different depth. That's one way I would describe them. And the more depth you want to go into, and the more styles you want to try out, that's when you can jump systems easily.
Yeah, I think Infinity did feel more like an FPS. The core gameplay loop of a first-person shooter is very simple. Move, aim, shoot, dodge. And Infinity feels a bit more like that because you have obviously the much smaller army in terms of the force you're using, up to 15 models. So that feels a bit more personal. When you've suddenly got great big open battlefield with pieces of terrain in between, and you've got a squad of 10, and here's another squad of 10, and there's another squad, and there's 3 tanks. It's a whole different style of game to play. So that kind of immediate, I do this, something happens, somebody else does this, I get to react and shoot them back, feels more like an FPS with Infinity. So I definitely agree with that.
I think overall, it really depends on the background you're coming from. I got into the Heresy because I love the books. Ahmed got a bit into the Heresy because he liked the background of the Word Bearers, but maybe the pace did not suit Ahmed's playstyle, and that's why it was easier for him to get into Infinity than get into another game.
Plus also a full Heresy army of 3,000 points is a lot of batch painting.
Mhm.
And if you're not into that either, which Ahmed clearly isn't, then
Play
that's
Knights.
not going to help either.
But yeah, I think because overall that's why I started to lean towards skirmish games more, because I like the faster pace that they kind of come with, and
It's less commitment.
less commitment, way less commitment.
You ain't kidding.
Yes, yeah. I think that we discussed this in the first episode, where like Infinity, you could buy a whole army in like 2 boxes, done. That's it. You want to buy more? Okay, that's just different poses, and they're all the same, so you can just proxy. And when you're getting into other bigger scale games, you buy 1K and then you expand on it. That's the general approach of starting Heresy. Infinity, you want to play 100 points, that's going to be 7 models. A box set gives you like 7 or 8 models. Kind of, that's it. The commitment is not as much as other, Warhammer games.
Yeah.
That can be a selling point, but again, the main attraction to Warhammer is the background.
As much as Infinity reeled me in with the models are cool, the gameplay is cool, the lore is from some book. Good luck even getting it.
Yes,
Mhm.
true.
It's especially the faction that I play. Like 2 videos on YouTube,
Yeah,
and one of them is just some guy reading the book.
Yeah.
That's it, and it's like from 11 years ago.
yeah, yeah. That's the main problem with Infinity. Is lore is very hard to get a hold of, and when you do, it's hardly anything, unless it's one of the RPG books. Good luck finding those. Like,
The Pano one you let me have for a while to go through was full of really good lore that I was able to sink my teeth into and find the hook that I wanted. But without that book, like looking at the wikis and like trying to Google it, and the first 8 results were all the same blurb.
Mhm.
And I thought, is there actually any?
Mhm.
And suddenly you drop this RPG book in my lap, and I'm like, oh, it tells me what language they speak on which planet. Like, wow.
It gets really deep, like especially the RPG books. Like I was reading on the Morat and the different tribes and different cultures they have, the infighting, the self-loathing over being defeated. And man, it goes really deep. And when you read the books, oh, big, angry orc, red. What is that, man? Come on, they have so much more depth.
My faction doesn't even have text on the back of the box.
You don't have a box.
I don't have text on my box, actually.
You
It doesn't tell me what are these units that are in the box.
yeah.
It's just a picture of them, no text. There was just one book over here that has a lot of lore about them, the Tohaa. There's nothing on YouTube. There's like the most basic. These are aliens, kind of bad, kind of good. That's it. That's the lore that you'll find online of them. I read the book. They indoctrinate other species and start genetically modifying them over time so that they'd be more obedient. And they trick them into they'd call them the exalted ones. In reality, just means that they're like indirectly enslaved.
Well, that was another one of our classic Meelas tangents.
Yes.
But I think the main message to take from all of that
By Infinity.
is that you don't need to turn up with an army,
Mhm.
a rule book, 10 years of lore knowledge. Just pop up to the Meelas, come see us, chill out for a bit. Take your first visit just to kind of soak in the vibes and see what the guys are like here, and see what games look interesting, see what models look interesting. There's always going to be somebody who is going to explore it with you and teach you more, take you deeper, show you more techniques, show you more games, show you more armies, more options. we cover so many different games here between us that we play. And you don't even need to play any of them. You can just come and sit and build, sit and paint. Something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
You could come here and sit and build your campaign for D&D in the background that you're going to run with a different group. Like, all of that works for us. And I think the support that the Meelas can give is kind of second to none in that.
I think the requirements for coming to the Meelas is
Clothes.
exist. Just exist.
Clothes.
Please wear clothes. You don't even need to be human. It's fine.
I mean, there's 4 cats here, so
Yeah.
we can,
You can, as a cat, you can join us.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the cats that are listening to this podcast. And you just want to geek out. That's all we do, honestly.
You can even bring your laptop here and work or something.
Yeah, actually, some do that.
I've seen it happen, yeah.
It's just an open space at this point, just to chill out.
The Meelas community help you find the part of the hobby that clicks for you, whatever that happens to be. You can sit and chat lore all day.
Yeah. You can chat all day.
All good.
Anything.
Yeah.
Or you can ask someone what they think of a certain game. And you'll get a card salesman pitch from like 4 different people. Yeah.
You can talk trash about word bearers and see what Ahmed's reaction is.
Or Warhammer in general. 11th is looking a lot like...
You'd say word bearer haters are not welcome, but...
We're long past that.
That's everyone.
yeah.
Do you know Erebus?
To be fair, it's very difficult to read First Heretic, Know No Fear, and Betrayer and not think the word bearers are very cool.
Yeah. It's just that Erebus exists.
Exists.
Just exists. That's enough for anyone to hate the word bearers.
It's all his fault.
It's all his fault.
Bring back Cadia to its old glory.
Bring KD back to old glory.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know the OG KD. Yeah, true.
There's a deep lore cut.
Yeah.
See, he knows what he's talking about.
He knows his Warhammer, that's for sure. Just doesn't play it.
Yeah. Never played the full match.
You played that full Necromunda match.
The Necromunda is not...
It's Warhammer.
He's not sat down and played Heresy or 40k, let's put it that way.
Yeah. We need to get...
that Necromunda match was funny.
I mean, Necromunda is funny.
Yeah.
Necromunda doesn't take it.
So I played the Corpse Grinders. Traditionally a melee army. My Baldur's Gate brain started working. I'm like, okay, I have an axe. And I can't close the distance. So can I throw that axe? And that's how I found out that it's secretly a ranged army. You can just keep throwing your axes forever.
Yeah. So
an axe is a form of gun.
That's because it's a chainsaw axe strapped to a bunch of wires that the corpse can throw at your opponents. And that's what Ahmed kept doing.
An axe machine gun.
That was a fun game, actually.
Yeah.
Any other business?
Warhammer 2nd edition.
Should I put some choir veins?
Hallelujah.
One of the things we're interested in doing in the very near future is playing some retro 2nd edition Warhammer 40k. For myself, for Sahel, for a couple of others, that's a very nostalgic look back into our early gaming history. So for me, it was my core Warhammer experiences come from that point, and that's why I'm still a wargamer. Whereas for you, Ibrahim, this is way before you got into it. So what is it that makes you go, I'll play that?
I like to call it second-hand nostalgia. It's where you have a lot of people around you that are interested in something, keep recalling it, talking about how the good times were. And overall, Warhammer isn't really on my... I wouldn't say it's not on my radar, but it's like I need something that might hook me. And sometimes looking at the origins of something makes you understand where it came from, or the origins of it. And when you guys keep talking about 2nd, 3rd edition Warhammer, it makes me wonder, how did that play? How was that like before? What are the differences? How did armies play then? What made them unique? All of these questions come to mind, and what's a better way to learn something than to play it? See how it is,
The great thing about retro editions of Warhammer, and particularly going back that far, is that the game is settled. Like we don't need to update it with a balanced data slate every 3 months. It's just, this is how it played back in the day. All the information is out there. You can find the PDF, you can find the old edition, the old print version, and pick it up and go, because rules last forever. There's nothing to force you to play the current edition.
Mm-hmm.
I'll gush about that era of 40k and Warhammer in general until the cows come home, because my Blood Angels are inspired by that era. They're that color in the White Dwarfs, that bright orange color that they had to print to make them still look interesting and cool and fun and red. And yeah, I'm super happy to get involved in playing some retro Warhammer.
Yes, because I've seen that guy that on Instagram that was doing retro arcade games things, and it made me even consider like having retro Warhammer be part of our roadmap or whatever we're gonna make out of it. Will be a lot of fun, especially since we have people experienced with that edition. Will also make it a much more enjoyable thing to do as a community together.
It's also a good idea to play second edition because it's like pivoting to basically a new game without having to do the whole investment and convincing of like, guys, we should buy this or get that or whatever. It's kind of just like already there. Just play with different rules.
Yeah, you've got most of the models already. You can start a new army if you want with that kind of feeling, or you can just proxy what you got. Now, for me, it's a wonderful chance to start something new, and I mean, my Blood Angels are my second edition Warhammer 40k inspired army, so I don't need to paint them specifically again, which is why, as I said last episode, I was considering Biel-Tan, because I just fancy painting some Eldar. It's something that's been on my list for a very, very long time, and I think I'm at a point in my painting skill where I enjoy doing it and would get quite good results for me out of it. So I'm looking forward to going through there and maybe slightly banishing the ghosts of being trounced by Eldar every single weekend for about 3 years.
Nice. Yeah, fair.
What army were you looking at?
So when I saw all the new orcs for the 11th, I was like, yeah, they look really cool. But I don't know what's about the original second edition orcs that was calling to me. But when I saw the like old models, I was kind of sold because I saw how a bit goofy they looked.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do second edition orcs. And thanks to you, we were able to get some STLs for the original models. So rather than selling a kidney for the actual real models from back then, we were able to print a good handful of them.
This is from the second edition box set specifically, that kind of iconic plastic set that gave you 2 squads of Space Marines, like 40 Gretchen of all in the same pose, and then I think it was 20 Orks.
Yeah, really. I mean, the ones we printed look exactly like that, and the Dreadnought is just the same one from the cardboard cutout.
Yeah, it's the one that was made. I can't remember the designer's name, but they made it to look like
that
the flat cardboard cutout while still making it 3D. Because there was an actual proper Dreadnought model that was extrapolated from that artwork, but this is one that's designed to look a bit flat on purpose.
This like approach in general is reminds me of one of the discussions I had with Ahmed a while back on designing older games. Like, how was the general approach to game design? Like, but we were talking in the context of video game design compared to, which I don't know how well that translates to wargaming.
It's pretty much the same. If you go look at old games, it's more about the silhouette and just visibility. Same thing with this. You can see that, like with the old Space Marines, for example, big shoulders, small torso, big feet, and they're tiny. You can see the entire thing very clearly. Same thing with coloration. Everything's bright.
Yeah.
it carried over because the same people who were making those games were the same people who were playing tabletop originally.
True. Yeah, you can see a lot of inspirations, I think, from and crossing over in both ends.
The game itself is still basically the same, because the turn order for second edition was move, shoot, melee, psychic. It's the same order.
I think it's also that mentality of doing the retro stuff is, the new hype is doing the old stuff.
I think it's partly because of the number of middle-aged wargamers there are, frankly. It's people who were doing it 30 years ago and have gone, I enjoyed that more. I'm going to do that again, rather than trying to keep up with the latest edition, which I'm absolutely part of that cohort. Father Time comes for us all. The ethos around the game, it took itself less seriously. And I think that's a really great place to start, to just have some fun and roll some dice in a much less competitive way of doing things. And then you throw in the aesthetics of the time. Everything was red. Even green armies were full of red. Blue armies were full of red. It was just the accent color for everything. By taking that style, it gives you another opportunity to paint in a completely different style. You can mess around and do it in a silly second edition force of just fun things that look cool.
It's also a nice thing to do to increase the range of your painting. I used to do Grimdark. How did I do Grimdark? By watching how people would do historical tanks and their styles of weathering. And then when I jumped into Infinity, I wanted to do that more cyberpunky, bright, but bit smoother transitions and all of that, bit more realistic approach to painting. A tip I read on how to master any hobby is to keep on trying different styles until you end up creating your own style. That's the end goal. Like, sure, I'm trying all of these different styles, and now second edition is just my next way of experimenting with different ways to paint.
And I'm more than happy to do that experimentation with you.
Yeah,
have a few games and draw some others in, and bring up some of the guys from Dubai who have their types of armies there.
Indoctrination.
Ahmed, do you see yourself playing second edition?
Of course not.
After all that sales pitch.
Yeah. Ahmed, I think we're just going to stop at Ahmed saying no.
No.
I mean, that just wraps up the Meelas podcast. Full stop. If it yes, well, thanks, Ahmed.
Yes, Ahmed.
I like my
You like your Infinity?
my variety in opinions.
Yeah, you're allowed your opinions, even if they are wrong. It's fine. We can't all be right.
Yes.
I think that about wraps everything up that we were going to talk about today. So if visiting the Meelas sounds like your kind of thing, drop us a DM on Instagram at ad.wargaming. Find us in our next episode of the Meelas podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We're an audiogram on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So thank you very much for listening to the show. Thank you, Ibrahim, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed, for spending this time with us too.
I was about to say I wasn't gonna get a thanks or something.
No. Just going to skip you this one.
Thank you for doing this.
We'll see you in our next episode.
And never forget to start new armies.
And thank you for listening.
And do Infinity.
Infinity good.
Infinity good.
And second edition 40k.
And second one.
Wrong. Hello.